Welcome back, my friends, to the Mail-Right Real Estate Agent Podcast Show. We are on episode 131. Our guest today is AJ Wilcox. He's a LinkedIn ads evangelist. How about that? And the founder of B2Linked. AJ, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys.
All right, and maybe a 60-second commercial on who you are and what you do before we launch into questions.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I've been doing digital marketing for about the last 10 years and really fell in love with LinkedIn's advertising platform about 5.5 years ago. Enjoyed it so much at a previous company that I decided to go off and start my own ad agency. So we've been in business a little over 3 years, and LinkedIn advertising is all we do. So I'm sure all of you are thinking like, whoa, in real estate, we don't really have a good use for LinkedIn ads, and that's okay. I'll share with you that from an enthusiast perspective, I absolutely love using the organic side of LinkedIn as well. So we'll get to share lots of things about how to use all the free tools that LinkedIn gives you better for just better networking. And on a personal side, I live in Utah with my wife and 4 kids. We're trying to repopulate the earth, and I love exotic cars. That's kind of my thing. So.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, that was a good introduction. And speaking of introductions, Jonathan, you want to take a shot at your introduction? Who are you and what you do?
Oh, hi there, folks. I'm the founder of the podcast and also the founder of Mail-Right, which is an online marketing platform that gives you a number of tools to put your Facebook advertising on steroids. Back to you, Thomas.
Thanks. And I'm Thomas J. Nelson. I'm a residential realtor here in beautiful San Diego, California with Big Block Realty. You can find me on my website, conveniently named thomasjnelsonrealtor.com, or on social media and LinkedIn. Speaking of LinkedIn, we have a wonderful LinkedIn guest today, and we want to dive into the questions. So, AJ, my first question is, what I noticed on your credentials is you're a certified LinkedIn ads partner. Maybe you can explain what that credential means to people checking you out.
Sure. Well, essentially, we were an ad agency. We're the only one on the planet who LinkedIn ads is all we do. And so we worked really closely hand in hand with LinkedIn for a couple of years until finally they said, hey, by the way, we've got this certification program, this partnership that we've done with other technology providers. We realize that you're not really a technology provider. You're more of an ad agency. But would you be interested? And I was like, absolutely, I would. So anyway, it doesn't necessarily mean too much other than the fact that LinkedIn sends us some of their leads when there's a good need, and we get to put each other's logos on the websites. But it's a nice ability to peer into their roadmap. They share things that are coming out early and all the betas of their advertising features. I get to see all that.
Oh, okay. So I mean, there's some credibility that comes with this.
I sure hope so.
All right. So I'm going to give you a devil's advocate question right out of the gate here, because I do a lot of blogging on Active Rain and get the temperature of the real estate community through that. So here's a question I know would be asked by realtors. Why the heck should I advertise on that old platform LinkedIn when all we need to do today is advertise on Facebook?
So I will actually take your side on this one. I don't think realtors should be advertising on LinkedIn. And the reason why, there's some definite pros and cons to the platform. The pros are that you have by far the best business targeting out there, but when you're targeting someone who's looking for a house, so I think it might be a little bit different in commercial, but in residential, when someone's looking for a house, you can't tell by their job title or by how long they've been in business whether they're in the market. And so LinkedIn has this amazing targeting that is just useless to the normal residential realtor. And then I'll also say that LinkedIn is traditionally pretty expensive compared to other ad platforms, especially Facebook. Whereas on Facebook, I'm seeing business to business types of traffic costing 80 cents to $1.50 per click. On LinkedIn, it's oftentimes between $6 and $9. So it's orders of magnitude more expensive than Facebook. So until those start to get closer, and we know they are, we know Facebook's prices are going up. As they do, then it might make sense to kind of dabble. But for right now, I'd say if you're not commercial, it probably doesn't make sense.
So then how could a residential realtor take advantage of LinkedIn?
So there's the whole side of LinkedIn, which is what I call the organic side, which is just free. It's just this ability to network with other professionals, get to know them, build relationships. And I think one of the most powerful things there is to share content, to share posts. It's so much easier to go viral on LinkedIn than it is on any other network. The reason for this is anytime that someone hits like, comment, or share on your post, it then reshares your post to their whole network. So anyway, it's really easy to hit big numbers of views there. And the whole goal, I think, of sharing content for a realtor is just to stay top of mind, because you never know of the 1,000 or 2,000 people you're connected to at any given time. 2 or 3 of them might be considering moving, looking for a new house, selling. And so it just sharing, stay top of mind, and just keep relationships going.
Well, I appreciate that answer, because there's a lot of misconception about LinkedIn and how to use it, and I was, of course, being facetious when I said that old platform, because obviously that's one of the places I find myself on a daily basis, and I don't see it. I think a lot of people haven't been there in a while or don't realize the updating and upgrades that LinkedIn's provided in the last couple of years. But talk to me more about LinkedIn, because, you chose LinkedIn over all the other platforms that are out there. What drew you to LinkedIn specifically?
Well, I'll tell you, I really love business to business, and I didn't know I liked it until, I don't know, probably 2014. But what happened was, as I got deeper and deeper into business to business, I realized that it's inherently more difficult. You have things like what we call offline conversions in the space, where someone who does e-commerce marketing, they might spend $1 today, close a deal, and then that all shows up in their shopping cart, and you can see what your ROI is overnight. But for business to business, we have to do a lot of projections. It's a lot more data work in understanding that we got a lead today. It probably won't close for 6 months, but it'll be worth $1.2 million when it does. So, right. Bigger dollar figures, it's a lot more fun to me, but not everyone thinks that. So when you're in business to business, LinkedIn is really the only platform. Facebook has some decent targeting around the professional nature of people, but the vast majority of professionals aren't putting that information into Facebook because it's so personal. So LinkedIn is the only place to be, really, if you want to scale business to business.
All right. So now let's shift gears for a minute here, because we got to dive into the services you provide. When people call on you, what are they calling on you to help them with? What are you doing for them?
Generally, it's going to be someone in one of 3 areas. They're going to be a business-to-business product or service with really high value. So that means when you close a deal, it's worth at least $15,000. So that's number 1. Number 2 is going to be someone who's looking to recruit a white-collar professional, usually in mass. So maybe a tech company who's trying to add 80 new people into the company this year. They work really well with LinkedIn ads. And then number 3 is the higher education institutions. If you can imagine someone like an MBA program trying to recruit students, there's really good targeting on LinkedIn around education. So those are the 3 kinds of people who come to me, and then they're generally saying things like, hey, we'd like to advertise on LinkedIn, but we want to make sure, just because it's expensive, we want to make sure it's done right. Or, hey, we've done a little bit of advertising and we could sure use someone looking over our shoulders and a little bit of consulting. So that's kind of what our services look like.
Okay. So, and then as far as like tracking results, how do you provide your clients with that proof of ROI? Because, as you mentioned, they're not going to see it right away. So how do you show them that this is working for them?
Yeah. So what you have to use are proxy metrics in between. So we know that when someone downloads a piece of content or fills out a form, we know that's an initial contact or lead. Okay. And then over time, the client will have built up this understanding of all of the contact forms filled out. Maybe a fifth of those turn into qualified leads, and then half of those receive a proposal, and then half of those close. So what we're going to do is generate a whole bunch of those up front, and then watch them as they graduate through the funnel. And if they are overperforming or underperforming the metrics that we're looking at, even though we know that deal won't close for 6 months, we can sure look ahead and say, at the 2-month mark, it looks like these are graduating at a slightly higher rate down the funnel. So this looks like it's going to be successful, or it's not.
And then with that, how much work is the client doing versus you doing? In other words, is this completely hands off for the client, or are they rolling up their sleeves and getting their hands dirty a little with you on this process?
Yeah, they'll roll up their sleeves a little bit in the beginning, because what we need a landing page with content, and we need some imagery. And then after that, it's pretty much hands off. It's me and my team. We go and build the ads. We tune the audiences. We're optimizing to results and reporting back.
Okay. So, and then for those landing pages, because I know Jonathan and I have spoken on that topic many times over the last couple of years, and they seem to be extremely important these days. So when they're designing these landing pages for you to utilize, are you helping them with that process, or is that something they have to do with their web designer or an outside company?
So they'll actually build it with their web designer, but then we've obviously seen thousands or tens of thousands of different landing pages and offers. And so there's a lot that we can add to that conversation. Like, hey, we'd recommend, a lot of people have a button that says, I'm interested. And then the form appears after they click that button. And then there's another form to submit, or another button to submit. And it's things like that we can say, well, just show the form to begin with. Don't have them click 2 buttons in between. We can give good advice like that along the way.
Yeah, it's funny how just something that simple can make a big difference because of how rapid we are online. It sounds, out of context, it sounds like, wow, how lazy are you? But I mean, the reality is, if I got to start clicking a bunch of buttons, I'm out of there. It's like, I'm going to go find something simpler. So
yeah.
Unfortunately, I think the online community, the dynamics of it breeds that because it's just more and more rapid. So, and I think that's kind of one of the misnomers about LinkedIn, because I know a lot of people see LinkedIn as they still view it as just a place where you go and submit a job application. I mean, can you talk about how LinkedIn's grown over the years? And I mean, is it still primarily where you're putting resumes, or is it much more than that?
It has very quickly, comparative in relative terms, it's very quickly becoming a place where people want to come and spend time. It's a destination, and not just a place that you go and drop off your resume, update every 6 months. Back in 2012, I think they realized that they had a whole bunch of ways of making money. They had their ads platform, they have the recruiter license, and they have the sales navigator license. And none of the 3 of those things were even interesting to their customers unless people spent more time on LinkedIn. So they went out and they selected like 200 of these, what they called LinkedIn influencers. They're business celebrities like Richard Branson and Bill Gates to come and write blog posts. And then in 2013, they gave all of us the ability to write our own extended blog posts that are attached to our profile. And so it became more of this content platform. And then, even just, I've been watching this all along, even just in the last 6 months, I've seen a ton of people who've realized, like Gary Vaynerchuk, that I'm sure most of your listeners know very well. He just came on about 5 months ago and said, whoa, I posted something on LinkedIn and I got more views than I did on Instagram. So I guess this is a place I should be paying attention. And so now he posts, almost daily on LinkedIn. This is becoming a place where people are spending a lot more time because they see that virality, and it's really helpful for business.
I've got a kind of follow question on that, AJ. Do you think LinkedIn was kind of influenced by the success of Medium, of Medium's blogging platform? Because the actual mechanics of posting on LinkedIn, the actual interface seems very similar to Medium in a way, the editor and that.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one came first. I would tell people for the longest time, if you're going to write one of these, what they call LinkedIn publisher articles, if you're going to write one of those on LinkedIn, take exactly the same content and share it over to Medium at the same time. So they were more or less competitors, but they worked different ways and had different types of following. So I'm not sure who had it first, but I would sure recommend using both.
Right.
So what we're starting to see then is people are kind of coming back to LinkedIn. Do you think do you think in part that's a response to, like, there seems to be somewhat of a burnout going on in social media? I know, like my son's 20, and I mean, he's doing Snapchat and Instagram, and he's nowhere near Facebook anymore. He doesn't want to be anywhere Dad is. And Dad's turned Facebook into basically a networking and business platform. So I mean, do you see this as a kind of a rebirth for LinkedIn, because the shiny object of social media is kind of losing its luster, so people are coming back to basics?
I sure do. I mean, there is so much going on in social at any given time, and I work in it full time, and I have a hard time keeping up. So I can't imagine what it's like for the lay user. I look at what's happening with Facebook, where they're reporting quarter over quarter double-digit growth in cost per 1,000 impressions on their ads. So essentially, costs are going up double-digit percentages, triple digits quarter or half over half of the year. So I think what we're going to see is so many people in business to business ran to Facebook just because it was so incredibly inexpensive. And now that prices are coming up, I think what we're going to see is, as soon as you have to start paying $3 for a click on Facebook, like people are going to start saying, all right, well, I would much rather pay $6 a click on LinkedIn and have tighter control over my audience and know that they're in the right state of mind when they're interacting with me. So I think we're going to see big growth in both platforms.
And I know you touched on this earlier, but I want to just kind of remind myself and our listeners, the targeting that Facebook offers with their ads, is LinkedIn comparable because of the way you can do advanced searches and things, or is it a different platform?
It's very, very different. I think for business to consumer, Facebook just far and away kills LinkedIn. I mean, you can target, as you know, by interests, by whether someone owns a boat, by what cell phone carrier they have. I mean, it just gets so much in detail.
Right.
But on the business to business side, Facebook has job title, which has been really buggy the last little while, and just because of some issues they've had. Their company size targeting, which just straight up doesn't work. You have their industry targeting, their office size targeting. Some of these things, it's pretty deeply flawed, and there aren't a whole lot of people who are actually putting that data into their profiles.
Okay.
So because of that, if you're in business to business, LinkedIn wins far and away. I mean, you have so many different ways to target: by job title, by seniority, how long someone's been in the workforce, the groups they're members of, skills they have listed on their profile. It just goes on and on. I mean, anything for business, LinkedIn is way better.
So you have to be really in touch with what your purpose is of the ad, because like as a realtor and a networker, I'm hearing two different uses. Like if I'm going to go after that clientele, consumer level clientele, like maybe I want to market a house that just came on the market, I'm going to go to Facebook. But if I'm going to try to connect with some hubs that could become pipelines, I'm going to go to LinkedIn, because those are the movers and the shakers in the business world that, may know, in my world for San Diego, they may know like the CEO of Qualcomm that imports a lot of jobs, which means a lot of people that need to buy homes. So you have to think a few steps down the road. The way I've always described it is Facebook to me is checkers and LinkedIn is chess.
I like that. That's a really apropos description of them.
So let me ask you this. Your clientele on LinkedIn, are they predominantly free members or paid members? And does that matter?
It actually doesn't matter at all for advertising. LinkedIn says if you're willing to pay our price for clicks, then we're going to give you full access to everything advertising. So the vast majority of them have the free license, myself included.
Oh, okay. So you haven't even felt the need to go to the paid platform?
No, there are a few things that I think you get with the paid platform that are pretty helpful. Number one is going to be the ability to send in-mails. So that's sending communication to people that you're not already connected to.
Oh, okay.
And I just don't do a whole lot of outreach. I mean, most of my marketing is inbound, and so I don't feel the need to reach out to people. And if I'm not already connected to them, I'm going to customize my message to them and say, hey, let's connect. I'd like to talk to you about this. So anyway, I feel like that's more useful. And then you have the probably the biggest reason, honestly, that most people get one of those premium profiles is to see who's been looking at your profile. In the free version, you can only see the last 5 people who've looked at your profile. And I honestly look at that and go, okay, that's really interesting, but it's kind of ego bait. It's who's been looking at me, and is there anything actionable there? I don't think so, but it gets people to open up their wallets. So,
yeah, I noticed that the majority of the people looking at my profile seem to be headhunters. It's people scouring the LinkedIn for who they can recruit. Because every once in a while, I'll get somebody calling me off of LinkedIn. talking to me about the job opportunities they're presenting, and I have to stop them and say, you do understand I own my own business, and I'm not looking to change businesses, and it's baffling to me sometimes, but I literally get a call about 2-3 times a month, somebody under the impression I'm out looking for a job through LinkedIn.
They obviously are not doing any research at all on you. If they took 2 peeks, they would realize, he's not on the job market.
Well, that's great. I think we're going to go for a break, folks, and when we come back, we're going to delve more into this fascinating conversation about LinkedIn with AJ. We'll be back in a few seconds, folks. We're coming back. We've had a great discussion with AJ about LinkedIn. I was thinking, the question that Thomas put you, how could a real estate agent really use the power of LinkedIn? And I think really is as a referral resource, to build up. 2 things came to mind: as a referral resource to build up relationships with other out of town, out of state agents, and other way is the kind of as a way of building your natural network, which you should be doing in your community, in the general business community, around people, to show that you're active, doing the things online that you should be doing face to face. What do you think about that, AJ?
I absolutely agree. I think those are really interesting use cases for the platform. I hadn't ever considered as a referral resource getting in touch with people out of town. I think that's great. I think one of the biggest, most powerful ways that LinkedIn can work for you in an organic way is by just sharing, because we talked a little bit earlier about how, before the break, about how when you share something, if it gets social interactions, it essentially goes viral. And so these are big opportunities for people to reach outside of their own network and also stay top of mind with the folks that they're already connected to. If you can imagine, instead of writing a post that says, hey, I'm looking for anyone who wants to post their home for sale, no one cares about that. It feels needy. But if you can imagine, on the other hand, you say, hey, I've got 2 listings. Here's a picture of each of their kitchens. Which kitchen would you much rather have? And tons of people are going to comment and say, A, I really like A. Oh, B, I love a commercial kitchen, whatever. And I think stuff like that just spreads like crazy. It's much more interesting. I think everyone in real estate really should be taking advantage of what we have and the wide reach that we have on it.
Oh, that's great. I was going to ask you a question. Obviously, it might have been over a year ago. It's probably 18 months now that LinkedIn bought lynda.com, which is to our listeners, it's one of the leading online video education providers. They bought it. I might be probably out of date a little bit. Obviously, they bought it because obviously LinkedIn, with its ownership by Microsoft, wants to get in linking with education, I would imagine. But I haven't seen any direct linkage through the interface between the 2 platforms. Do you think we're going to be seeing more of that in the coming year?
Yeah, it's a very slow-moving process. I think anytime that LinkedIn does anything, I think what the end goal is for people to say, hey, the education that I got in school, the degree I got 12 years ago in a different field than what I'm currently working in now, that doesn't define me. What defines me is my skills and my level of expertise that I've come into the market with and gained since my graduation. And so this ability in LinkedIn Learning or in Lynda to go and take certifications and then have them added into your profile as credibility factors for you. These are legitimizers to my level of skill in the field of marketing or in the field of technology.
The other thing is, especially, a real estate agent, the advert platform on Facebook is pretty complicated initially, but to actually post something is really easy. It's not, I don't think it's that easy, the actual mechanics. Obviously, this is a podcast. We can't draw a picture for our listeners, but do you think I'm correct? correct in what I'm basically saying is you log into LinkedIn and what do I do next after I filled in my profile? Do you agree with that? And can you give some tips to our listeners about what they should be doing next?
Yeah, I think the basis to any social platform is always having connections. So if you open up a platform today, an account on LinkedIn today, my very first thing would be to say, don't do anything else until you've gone out and invited all of the people that you personally know to join your network. Only when you have things in your feed and then you're out there for people to see, does it all of a sudden become important for you to be socially interacting and supporting other people and liking and commenting. But until then, build your network. I would also say that LinkedIn shows your number of connections up until you hit 500. And so as soon as you have 501, it says 500 plus. And that number is really a piece of social proof about you saying he or she is really well connected. And so I would say, don't just accept any invite out there if it's someone that you don't know, but definitely do rush to try to invite everyone that you know personally to hit that number because it is a legitimizer. People are going to be more willing to work with you if they feel like you're well connected.
The other thing is, and I'm not suggesting you do this to spam people in any shape or form, but another factor that a lot of people don't realise is that you connect all the people that join you through LinkedIn. You can export that data out of the system, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And this is something that I think LinkedIn hates. They keep trying to take this feature away, and they actually keep changing where you can find it. So every time I want to use this feature, I have to go and Google, hey, how do I go and export all of my connections? But you're absolutely right. This is incredibly powerful. Anyone that you're connected to on LinkedIn, you can then go in and see their personal email address or export all of your connections to a CSV spreadsheet. And one of those columns is personal email address. And so I agree with you, Jonathan. Don't go out and spam people with this. Don't add that whole list of people to your email tool. But it is something you could do. You have access to everyone's email addresses.
Well, you can do it, but you've got to do it in a respectful way, haven't you? Saying, we're joined in. We're joined in with LinkedIn. I'm just sending you this email. You've got to tell them what value you're going to give to them, and then give them a really easy way to unsubscribe, haven't you?
Yep, exactly. Because I've heard a lot of people tell me and complain about being on LinkedIn. Wow, I get all of these unsolicited emails and all of these just super spam kinds of connections from people I don't even know who they are. They come in every single day, and that pushes them farther away from the platform of being willing to use it. So I do think we need to, if you're worried about your reputation at all, I would say be really respectful of people's inboxes, exactly the way you described.
So with the takeover with Microsoft, the main, obviously they took over because they had this enormous database of all these people that have given all their data to LinkedIn, and they wanted access to that. But the main challenge that LinkedIn seemed to have is what Thomas hinted at, was that you kind of filled your profile in. A lot of people just used it when they were looking for a job, and there was a struggle for LinkedIn to attract people back to the platform and keep them coming back. There's been some interesting things, but do you see any things coming up in the next year which LinkedIn plan to do to try and get more people to come to the platform more often and stay there more often?
Yeah, I think we just recently saw them come out with video in, I think it was September of last year. And in September, all of a sudden, we could start putting native video into our feeds, which was a long time coming. You've been able to do this on Twitter and Facebook for years, on YouTube for a lot longer than that. And so this was a big move for them. I think the next logical step, we are doing a video cast, a live broadcast on Facebook right now. I think it's a total no-brainer that the next step for LinkedIn is to do live video. So I think that's a big one coming up.
And do you think they're also going to offer kind of system, a bit like the platform we're using at the present moment for this podcast, Zoom? Do you think they're going to offer to integrate it with Skype, where you'll be able to talk to people one-to-one?
That's insightful. I hadn't ever considered that, but Now that you bring it up, I think that would make a lot of sense to meld and merge all of those Microsoft technologies into one powerful business platform. I'd use it.
Go there. I'm going to follow. I'm going to push it back to Thomas and see if he's got any kind of extra questions. Back to you, Thomas.
I do, and actually, it came up just listening to the two of you talk, because what I'm curious about from your point of view, AJ, is what are some of the mistakes you see people making on LinkedIn that should be corrected, and maybe anything specific in the real estate world, but just in general, like how do you what's the best use of your time on LinkedIn? So maybe some of the mistakes you see people making to avoid.
Oh, I love this question. I think the biggest mistake that I see people make in networking is just because they're sending messages out that they would be ashamed to say to someone's face in a networking scenario. So just imagine LinkedIn is just like the digital version of the networking event that you went to yesterday, with other business professionals. The sending out connection requests to people that are generic from someone that they don't recognize in hopes that you'll just accept it. Just customize it. I mean, just write a little bit about why you want to connect with them, and then don't immediately, as soon as you're connected to someone, shoot them a sales pitch. I mean, we all hate to be sold to, and that's not the way you want to start a relationship. No one likes the guy at the networking event who just comes up and immediately hands you his business card. That's the same digital equivalent. So remember that when you're connecting to someone on LinkedIn, it should be because you're starting a relationship that you want to keep for a long time, not that you're going to try to churn and burn through contacts to try to sell them.
I would agree with that, because that's one of my pet peeves. I hired, we had a guest on last year, Rick the LinkedIn guy, and he specializes in training people on the use of LinkedIn as far as networking is concerned. And he also make sure that your profile is in good shape, because that's a starting point. So, and it was amazing the results I got, because once I let him do my profile many years ago at this point, I had to call him the next morning. I said, "What the heck did you do to my inbox? I had so many invites overnight just from tweaking my profile." But then what I realized is for a lot of those invites, they used the generic invite. And then as soon as I responded, I immediately got, almost in autoresponder fashion, this 5-paragraph resume. And I'm like, I don't care. I mean, I might want to know like what your favorite band is, or where do you live, but I don't care about all this. It's not why I said yes to you. So, and I don't get why people think that people are going to spend time reading 5 paragraphs about them when they don't even know them.
Yeah, I think there's an old mindset here of it's a numbers game. You're churning and burning through contacts, because if you touch 100 people, 3 of them are likely to respond. And I think this is an old way of thinking, because now if you realize that if you just take the time to customize everything, you'll have a near 100% response rate. So I would much rather take 5 minutes to write a connection that I knew was going to accept and become a real relationship, rather than fire off in 4 seconds and know that I was only going to hear from 3% of them. It doesn't make sense. It's make sure everything's personalized.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because it's it may be the old adage of 3 out of 100 are going to respond, but you've got 97 people that are basically already forming an opinion of you that's negative. So, and in the social media world, that could spread like wildfire. You could create a reputation for yourself a hell of a lot faster online than old school networking events.
I agree. Yeah, especially in real estate, where there's so much competition. If you do something to turn someone off to you, there are 50 other people that are in their network that they can go to. So I think it makes a lot more sense to customize and really treat everyone that you're connected with a white glove treatment, because it's too easy to find a substitute.
Well, and I like what you reminded us of, because it was the same thing that Rick had mentioned to us last year, was that you have to treat LinkedIn the same way you would treat a networking event that you went to for the Chamber of Commerce or BNI or LATIP or any of those groups. If you wouldn't do or say that face to face, why would you do it online? You know, you got to think about the consequences of firing off something like that, because at the end of the day, it's a business platform, in my opinion. And I would, you know, there's certain things you do and say in the business world, and that you don't really necessarily want to mix with your personal life, because you don't want to have your personal friends think, oh God, here comes sales pitch guy again. But the flip side's true too. You know, where I may feel more comfortable discussing more intimate details of my beliefs personally, they don't belong on LinkedIn. But then and I'm walking into the misnomer of that they're actually separate, because at the end of the day, what's stopping someone from doing a quick Google search and looking up my profile on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all that, and that all combined becomes who I am in their opinion.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I also think, Thomas, it's with LinkedIn is to put your mind in is I want to link with this individual. What do I offer to that individual that would be helpful to that individual? And then put that quickly in front of them with a friendly, keep it short and sweet, with a link to an online resource that they could go to learn more about that thing that you do that could help them.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jonathan. AJ, what were you going to say?
Well, I would say, I know we're talking about a lot of the faux pas, and to those who are not super comfortable on social or with technology at all, let alone social media, I also hear from quite a few people, I don't want to post anything because I don't want to piss anyone off. And so what I would say to any of you who are considering, you know, I don't want to do anything because I don't want to make some of the mistakes that you guys are talking about right now. I would say just, you know, everyone is willing to connect. So make sure you're reaching out and just start, you know, you don't have to dive in and start posting content, but make sure you're inviting the people that you know and reaching out and customizing to those who you want to know. Everyone's open to that. No one's going to be offended by it. And then as you know, feel out the network, and as it starts to become apparent what types of things are welcomed and what things aren't, then just stay very carefully on the line of, you know, this is allowed, this won't be spammy, and you'll do just fine. So don't be afraid of the network. Just get out there and start connecting.
I think that's a great point there, AJ, because I've noticed with people, I just want to point out to the listeners, if you do some mistakes in social media, because of the pace, it's going to be pretty quickly forgotten. What you mustn't do is get into a really bad habit with social media and keep on making the same mistake one after another. But don't get kind of hang up about, you know, you make a mistake, you do something a bit dumb, and you're marked for life, because the pace of this is at such a pace that it soon be forgotten. It's getting in bad habits that are the real problem. I think we've got to wrap it up, Thomas, for the podcast part of the show, and then we go into our bonus content. How does that sound, Thomas?
Yep, I think we're on time for that. So once again, folks, we've been discussing LinkedIn with AJ Wilcox, who is a self-proclaimed LinkedIn ads evangelist and the founder of B2 Linked. AJ, thank you so much for being on the show with us. We're going to sign off the podcast portion and ask you to stay with us for some bonus material for YouTube and the website. But if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out and learn more about your services?
The best way is if you go to b2linked.com. That's the letter B, the number 2, and then the word linked.com. If you fill out the form at the bottom of the page, it doesn't go to a sales guy. It doesn't go to, or you don't put yourself into some complex, you know, newsletter workflow. You just get right into my inbox, and I refuse to sell. So if you have any questions, hit me up there, and I'm totally happy to respond.
Okay, and we'll have AJ's contact information per usual up on the show notes in the MailRight website, so folks, you can find it there too. Jonathan, you want to tell folks how to get a hold of you?
Oh, it's really easy, folks. Just go to the website. There's a contact form that goes direct, like AJ, that goes direct to me. You've got any questions, there's a chat widget on the website. That goes direct to me as well. So I'm pretty easy to get hold of, Thomas.
All right. And if you want to get a hold of me, I'm Thomas J. Nelson with Big Block Realty San Diego. And one of the things I want to share with you today on this episode is that I do specialize in military and VA loans. I'm not a lender, but I connect people to my VA lender. And then we go out and help our military and our veterans buy a piece of the American dream, own a home. And it's something that I am proud to serve those that serve us and appreciate your service. So you can find me on thomasjnelsonrealtor.com and 858-232-8722 is the old school way to reach me if you want to call me or text me. All right, folks, we appreciate you joining us on another episode of the Mail-Right Real Estate Agent Podcast Show. We'll see you next week, or we'll be talking with you next week. But those of you that want to pick up the bonus content, join us on the video at this point. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. All right, so bonus content time. A question that I realized I forgot to ask you, AJ, back to your services is, what is a reasonable time frame to expect results using your services? And are there minimum time frames that you contract with people?
Yeah, so because we're an ad agency, we kind of just go month to month.
Okay.
So what I would recommend is, try to get your test in the first month, so you only have to pay for 1 month of our fee to dip your toe in the water and test. But in terms of the amount of time, it's not necessarily time, it's more of the data that you accrue. If you can imagine, I try to tell people, if once you've spent somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 on LinkedIn ads, you should know with a level of statistical significance what your conversion rate is and what your cost per conversion is. Two really important metrics in understanding if it's going to work moving forward. And so what I tell people is, it doesn't matter whether you spend $3,000 to $5,000 in 2 days or over the course of 6 months. That's how much data you need to analyze. So of course, if someone's working with me, it makes the most sense to spend that $3,000 to $5,000 in a single month, pay our fee once, and then we can tell them, yes, it's working, or no, don't spend another dime.
Okay. So, and then let me ask you this though: have realtors come to you in the past, or any kind of real estate company or brokerage?
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few real estate agents, and I've pretty much come to the conclusion that LinkedIn ads isn't really a good option for them.
Okay.
They have really big upsides when they sell a big home, obviously, but the targeting on LinkedIn, it's not worth paying as much for it as you have to, just because the title of someone doesn't tell you if they're in the market or not. So targeting isn't right, but their income is. However, on the commercial side, I have talked to several commercial real estate agents where it makes a lot of sense to target quick growing companies.
Right.
Here in Utah, we've got like the list of the top 100 fastest growing companies in Utah. And I've got an advertiser who downloads that list off the internet, uploads it, and targets everyone who's in finance or in HR, saying, hey, are you looking to expand your offices? We've got a great place for you. And it can work really well. So commercial, I think, is a much better application.
Yeah, I think the real power of it, Thomas, is very similar to Active Rain.
Active Rain, yeah.
Where you're trying to build relationships, you're trying to keep in contact with people that you met through training and that, and you're trying to build a network of other referral agents that might be moving into your area, or you can send a referral to them, and you can and also posting how regularly on this organic side, AJ, how regularly do you think an agent that should consider posting? I know the answer is going to be as much as possible, but realistically, how often do you think they should post on LinkedIn?
So most people are not super active on LinkedIn. They might check in once, maybe twice a week on average. And so what I tell people is, if you want to be pretty aggressive, post 1 to 2 times a week. Maybe you post something on Monday and something on Thursday, or split up otherwise. And that pretty much ensures that the vast majority of your contacts are going to see you every time they log in. I obviously log into LinkedIn really often, and when I see my own connections who are posting every single day, I start to get sick of them. So I actually take kind of a position where I say, don't post every single day, because I think you'll probably decrease the value of your own message, eventually people are going to start saying, I'm going to start, paying attention less to what AJ is saying because he just posts all this stuff and not all of it's of value.
And you can repurpose, you can kill multiple birds with one stone, can't you? Because you could use other material that you've posted in other areas and just slightly adapt it and then post it into LinkedIn, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, LinkedIn has no idea that this is exactly the same thing that you posted 6 months ago. If you got the same thing, post it up, maybe freshen it somehow. Yeah, there's definitely no penalty there.
So I want to go back because obviously we have a large real estate audience, and it sounds like this is something that works for the commercial. So the residential listener right now might be going, well, what the heck am I listening to this for? And although I think we've given some great peripheral tips, I want to remind people that some of the things that you said earlier, and maybe you can pile on, AJ, with some more tips, is what I heard you say earlier is if somebody's new to LinkedIn or they've underutilized it to this point, they want to get serious about it. We discussed having, first of all, you got to have a complete profile. And because I'll tell you, I never accept an invitation for someone that doesn't even have a profile picture in there. That's and the second thing is you want to reach out to your database to build up that connection, because what you said earlier, AJ, is correct. When you get to a status, I'm well over 2,000 connections, and you start looking at these 154 connected people wanting to connect with you. And you start getting choosier, it's like, well, why, and am I just here to help you build connections up, or is there a value to this connection? Which is kind of hypocritical, because when you're under 500, you're trying to collect as many as you can. I get that. But be that as it may, that's kind of where once you achieve the 500, you start really thinking about, all right, who am I connecting with and what's the value? So for the residential realtors that are listening, what other tips would you share with them to get the most out of LinkedIn, to make it something that they do go to at least twice a week?
Well, Thomas, I think you hit the nail on the head. You want your profile to look inviting, and you want it to represent you. People don't like to do business with companies. They like to do business with individuals.
Right.
So I think a lot of us think, okay, I can be myself on Facebook, but on LinkedIn, I have to be professional. And by far the most viral content out there on LinkedIn right now is people just being real, telling personal stories about how things made them feel. So be yourself. Obviously don't show bikini pictures from your last vacation. It's not quite there.
You don't want to see me in a bikini.
Me neither. Mine is not the side of the beach that you'd go.
Definitely not me.
But that's what has to govern what kind of stuff you put out there. It's going to be professional, but you want to show personality. You want to stand out, and then don't hide behind your company. Make this all about you.
I think that's another thing we got to emphasize. What you might put on Twitter and Facebook, you definitely probably wouldn't want to put on LinkedIn. It's got to be personal, but it's also got to be professional, isn't it?
It's true. Yeah, same rules apply. Don't share anything religious. Don't share anything political. Avoid the really divisive stuff. Right.
Yeah. It just leads to going down a rabbit hole of debate and argument that you just don't want to get into. I like to write polarizing blog posts and post them on LinkedIn, which I also connect to Twitter. LinkedIn has a nice little feature where you can check a box and send it to Twitter at the same time. But it's polarizing either in fact, where I can show where I got my information, or it's based on experience, where I can cite 3 or 4 instances where this repeatedly happened, so I've formed this opinion. To throw something out there just to create controversy, it's going to give you the wrong attention, in my opinion.
Yeah, you definitely want to be controversial because that's what gets people to pay attention. But don't be controversial in subjects that makes everyone's comment say, hey, dude, save this for Facebook.
Yeah. Is that the slam on LinkedIn? Oh, this is Facebook material.
Yeah, it is. And the sad part about it is when you go see, someone share something religious or someone shares something political, and every comment is just, hey, this belongs on Facebook.
Wow.
And of course, from our earlier chat, anytime that someone hits comment, it reshares. And so you have this person who goes viral by doing something wrong, and everyone else is sharing it by telling them that they're doing it wrong, and it just blows up. So you want to stay away from that.
Well, before we wrap up today, have I neglected to ask you a question I should have that we should address?
Oh, I don't think so. I think we've discovered
a
lot of stuff about the platform. Yeah.
All right. Well, one more time then for our viewers now. Will you share how they can get a hold of you, AJ?
Absolutely. Go to b2linked.com and fill out the form at the bottom of the website. You'll get me. And again, I refuse to sell, and I'm super happy to be helpful. And then also on Twitter, I'm Wilcox AJ, and I generally respond there pretty quickly. So any question you have, anything I can help you out with or refer you to someone, I'm super happy to do it.
All right. And folks, we've been discussing LinkedIn strategies, mistakes, and positive things to do with it. AJ Wilcox with B2 Linked. And that's B, the letter B, the number 2 linked. And we'll have all his information here on the show notes on the MailRight site. We will see you again next week. But before I sign out, I want to one more time give Jonathan an opportunity to say goodbye and how to get a hold of him.
We'll see you next week, folks. We're going to have another interesting guest, and it's really easy. Just go to the website. There's multiple ways of contacting me.
All right, and I'm Thomas J. Nelson with Big Block Realty San Diego, and you can find me on thomasjnelsonrealtor.com and contact me through there. All my social media is connected to my site. AJ, thanks for all the wisdom you shared with us and our audience, and we appreciated having you on the show today.
Hey, Jonathan, Thomas, thanks so much for having me. It's been an absolute treat.
All right, guys. Bye-bye for now.